It is 2 in the morning inside the heavily chlorinated combat training pool at the Naval Special Warfare Center, and your prefrontal cortex is screaming for oxygen. You are treading water in full combat uniform, holding a 10-pound lead diving weight directly above your head, attempting to suppress the violent spasms in your diaphragm. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell. We cover the stories the history books skip. You don't want to miss what's coming next. I served nearly 20 years in the special operations community. I am not going to name names or list specific operations. A lot of that is in the past and some of it stays there. I came back with this body, some titanium hardware in my spine, and a military disability rating. Now this channel is my job. I share the reality of what it takes to survive in the worst conditions on Earth. I share what I know, you watch, that is the exchange. Today we are stripping away the cinematic illusions of military water survival to examine the brutal, unclassified economics of producing a combat diver. The civilian public views military swimming simply as an extreme athletic event held in a local pool. The Department of Defense views aquatic selection as a massive, highly synchronized industrial operation with a staggering financial burn rate. Executing a single day of complex subsurface maneuvers requires a logistical footprint that costs the American taxpayer hundreds of thousands of dollars before a candidate even reaches the ocean. To understand the economics of the combat pool, you must first understand the infrastructure. A dedicated military aquatic training facility is a multi-million-dollar feat of engineering designed specifically for human physiological testing. The daily operational cost to simply run the facility reaches into the thousands of dollars. The military utilizes industrial-grade heating and filtration systems. Because the water is constantly contaminated by candidates vomiting from physical exhaustion and massive chlorine ingestion. But the concrete and the filtration systems are cheap compared to the human capital required to run an evolution safely. The military does not conduct underwater breath hold testing without a massive, highly paid safety apparatus actively standing by. A fully staffed medical team, including a specialized dive medical officer, sits on the pool deck equipped with pure oxygen and automated external defibrillators. This doctor is a highly commissioned officer whose daily salary and specialized trauma training represent a massive ongoing investment by the Defense Health Agency. Below the surface, the financial burn rate continues to compound. For every squad of candidates suffering through drown-proofing or underwater knot tying, there are dedicated safety divers hovering inches away in the water column. These safety divers are senior enlisted special operators, breathing from expensive scuba regulators, watching the candidate's eyes for the exact moment they lose consciousness from hypoxia. You are paying for a human asset worth well over $100,000 a year in base salary and special duty pay, simply to ensure a candidate does not die during an evaluation. When candidates are forced to execute the 50-meter underwater swim, the biological panic is absolute. The human brain cannot be easily trained to ignore hypercapnia, which is the toxic buildup of carbon dioxide in the bloodstream. When carbon dioxide levels spike, the brainstem sends a terrifying survival signal that triggers involuntary diaphragmatic spasms, convincing the candidate they are actively dying. If a candidate breaks the surface for air, the instructor on the deck instantly records a failure, mathematically writing off thousands of dollars of preparatory training. The candidates who survive the pool transition to the open ocean, where the cost of the equipment transitions from basic nylon to highly complex life support technology. The foundation of modern combat diving is the closed-circuit oxygen rebreather, most commonly the Draeger LARV system. This specialized piece of diving apparatus chemically scrubs carbon dioxide from exhaled breath and produces zero surface bubbles, allowing for completely stealthy underwater infiltration. A single Draeger unit costs the military roughly $10,000 to procure. The maintenance of these rebreathers is a logistical nightmare with an immense daily price tag. The military must maintain a massive inventory of these machines, constantly paying civilian technicians to replace delicate oxygen sensors, heavy rubber breathing hoses, and expensive carbon dioxide scrubber canisters. The candidates are also issued specialized navigation boards equipped with underwater compasses and illuminated dive chronometers, which add another $2,000 to the individual operator's loadout. They wear heavy-duty combat wetsuits, specialized low-volume masks, and rigid tactical fins that cost hundreds of dollars per set. Operating in the open ocean requires a fleet of specialized surface vessels to transport and recover the divers in heavy surf conditions. The military relies heavily on the F-470 combat rubber raiding craft, commonly known as the Zodiac. A single Zodiac boat, completely stripped of its engine and accessories, costs the government roughly $15,000. These boats are subjected to brutal surf passages and constant impact with jagged rocks, requiring dedicated support personnel to constantly patch the heavy neoprene and replace shattered floorboards. The Zodiacs are powered by submersible outboard motors, typically 35 or 55 horsepower engines heavily modified to survive being dropped from aircraft or completely flooded with salt water. These engines burn expensive marine-grade fuel and require a massive supply chain of replacement parts and specialized mechanics to remain operational in a corrosive saltwater environment. During a single week of open water navigation training, a combat dive school will burn through tens of thousands of dollars in fuel and engine maintenance alone. The financial burden reaches its absolute peak when aviation assets are integrated into the maritime training. Candidates must learn helocasting, the tactical insertion method of jumping from a hovering helicopter directly into the ocean. The military dispatches an MH-60 Blackhawk or a heavy CH-53C Stallion to hover precisely 10 feet above the chaotic, freezing ocean swells. Operating a military helicopter costs the Department of Defense anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per flight hour in aviation fuel, structural maintenance, and aircrew salaries. The candidates leap from the aircraft holding their fins and heavy medical or assault rucksacks, violently impacting the cold water. The helicopter then circles back, drops the Zodiac boat from a heavy sling load, and the candidates must swim to the boat, right it in the waves, and initiate their amphibious assault. The military spends tens of thousands of dollars in a single morning just to simulate the first 5 minutes of a combat insertion. If a panicked candidate loses a critical piece of encrypted communication gear or a navigation board in the deep ocean, the financial loss is unrecoverable. The attrition rate at these aquatic selection courses remains exceptionally high, often exceeding 70 to 80%. When a candidate fails a shallow water blackout drill or misses too many underwater navigation points in the dark, the military absorbs a massive financial loss. The thousands of dollars spent on the flight hours, the fuel for the boats, and the salaries of the instructor cadre spent on that specific individual yield zero operational return. The financial cost of the washouts is mathematically baked into the price tag of the few men who actually graduate and earn the dive bubble. The Department of Defense does not view this massive expenditure as a waste of resources. A mathematically sound, highly trained combat diver acts as a massive strategic asset, capable of infiltrating hostile harbors to sabotage enemy warships or conduct clandestine beach reconnaissance. The millions of dollars spent on the aquatic pipeline are not invested in the rubber of the boat or the nylon of the wetsuit. The money is spent entirely on calibrating the human brain to process chaotic ocean currents and execute a flawless mechanical action while biologically suffocating in the dark. If this gave you a real understanding of the brutal economics behind aquatic military training, hit the like button. Drop a comment. Have you ever experienced a combat water survival test? What was the moment the exhaustion finally caught up with you? Share this with someone who thinks military swimming is just a day at the beach. They need to understand the brutal mathematics of the deep end.